Just sit right back and you'll hear a tale of a bookish trip.
Hey, welcome back to another read along with the authors. I am back with, and I didn't say last time, I don't think, but I'm Chautona Havig if you don't know, and I am back with the very first book in the Independence Island series. It is Dual Power of Convenience, and in this series, in my 5 books, because there are 5 islands that we're going to go on and one for each island. I mean, it's brilliant, right? No, but in my books, I am kind of taking romantic tropes that are popular in the romance genre, and I'm kind of twisting them and doing something different with them, and sometimes flipping them on their head, and they're not quite the same. And in this one, obviously, we're having this whole marriage of convenience kind of thing, but it's also a little different because I'm playing with the whole billionaire romance thing, and it's not what you're expecting. Unless you read the synopsis, then you might figure it out. So I'm going to read the synopsis for you, and then you'll kind of get an idea of where this is going and why. Okay, I'm on my tablet today because this book doesn't come out until the end of July. So, woohoo! I'm really excited about this series, I gotta just say. And they are all, the first ones in the series are all up for pre-order now, so I figure I probably should say that too. Woot! Okay, all the advertisement out of the way, let's read the synopsis for Dual Power of Convenience. All they wanted was a happily never after. When Richard Danforth inherits the family estate on Meriwether Island, he doesn't have time to deal with it, especially not from halfway across the globe. He's too busy working to become the world's newest billionaire and avoiding the women who would detract him from his goals. Enter Lila Santana. Fresh out of Oxford University with a degree in antiques and a relationship that nearly killed her to leave, she's eager for the isolation and treasure trove that is Danforth Hall. Lila is also determined to avoid men at all costs. Forever. It was supposed to be a match made on paper. With him halfway across the globe, they'd never have to see each other again. So what's Richard doing on Meriwether just weeks after the wedding? And how will his arrival test Lila's faith? Not to mention stretch their so-called relationship. In a twist on billionaire romance and marriages of convenience, this Meriwether book kicks off a new series featuring 5 islands, 6 authors, and a boatload of happily ever afters. So, Chapter 1, June 9th. This isn't what I had in mind when I decided to open a mobile bookstore. The words, though shouted in her mind, barely escaped beneath her breath as Mallory Barrows combined milk, coffee, and caramel syrup into an iced coffee confection that would put any chain coffee seller to shame. Behind her, a middle-aged man stood with his back to her, his eyes fixated on a row of history books. He'll buy one of the World War II memoirs. In the first weeks of her fledgling little business, she'd have been thrilled with the sale of a $5 book. But even without opening the 3 bills she'd received that morning, Mallory knew it wouldn't touch the deficit they'd produce in her barely solvent accounts. Still, added to a $4 coffee, that would at least bring the hour's sales past minimum wage anyway. Mr. Hilliard, I've got your salted iced caramel. Anything else today? I have caramel apple cookies that would be heavenly with it. I'll take 2. He pulled a book, Diaries of World War II Pilots, of course, from the shelf and handed it to her. This too. Maybe it wasn't fair, but Mallory needed the money. I have one on German POWs in England in a box somewhere. Want me to pull it out so you can take a look at it next week? Nah, this'll take me a week or 2 to get through. Maybe in a few weeks. Of course. This time she didn't have to ignore the guilty prods to her conscience. They didn't appear at all. It'll be there when you're ready for it, unless Mr. McClellan finds it first. That's all it took. Well, Levon will probably want one of those frou-frou coffees next Tuesday, so show me then. We're taking a trip at the end of the month. She'll be antiquing for hours, so I'll need a few good books to keep me busy. And though she agreed and sympathized and promised to put the book on the reserve shelf until he had a chance to look at it, the whole time Mallory thought, you tell yourself that if you must. The minuscule workstation in the tiny mobile bookstore looked as if an equally tiny hurricane had swept through, leaving caffeinated destruction in its wake. She wiped, scrubbed, prepped, only to start over again with a wave of teens who stormed in from the beach. Girls in bikinis that made itsy bitsy sound modest by comparison, boys in long board shorts and sleeveless rash guards. 6 more variations of iced coffee and another massive cleanup later, she finally had a break. Not one person strolled down Captain's Walk to interrupt a nice, well-earned rest. Mallory took it as a providential provision and carried an blackberry Italian soda out beneath the awning. Seconds later, she raced back for her laptop case. Time to figure out how bad it is. The head of the Island Association, Abel Crawford, had warned her that islanders would be eager in the beginning. People mean well, but they get busy and go back into usual routines. Read a study about it once. Don't count good sales up front as proof it's going to work, okay? Mallory opened her laptop and clicked the little green X icon. With taunting glee, the spreadsheet opened. The numbers glowed their message of doom. The all-black column should have reassured her, but 3 opened envelopes threatened that fledgling piece. Any one of them could push her into the red, the literal and financial red. As she squared her shoulders, Mallory ripped open the first one. $60 in the hole. The next one bumped that to $200, and the last shot it over $350. Even with the outstanding Meriwether Island special orders and the day's coffee and soda rush, it wouldn't drop the total below $300. For the second month in a row, Mallory transferred money from her personal savings account into her business account and wondered if she'd made a mistake encouraging her friends to take up the mobile business idea. I hope islanders are more eager to feed their bellies than they are their brains, or Beth is going to starve herself and her bank account. Bills paid, she closed and stowed the laptop, grabbed her business journal and pen, and began writing. Ideas, thoughts, frustrations, joys, any thought that came to her mind she put down on paper. However, eventually the ideas shifted from second-guessing leaving her job in marketing to be a traveling bookstore to solid ideas she could use to improve the chances of financial success. Story hour. Read a book every week for a full hour, much like a radio drama. Different groups, maybe even adults. Book clubs, discounts on books. Date with a book. Make it romantic enough for couples? Local authors, include Savannah. Book-themed parties for birthdays. Home delivery? Get a scooter? Something in the air shifted, something that could only mean one thing. The evening ferry had arrived. Mallory hadn't closed her laptop yet when the horn blew. If she didn't hurry, she might miss the opportunity to entice potential customers with the scent of brewing coffee. That she'd used in making desserts that night. And if she used a fan to blow the scent down toward the docks, well, one by one, regulars appeared. Some just for sweet tea, others for coffee, and some for a drink of choice and a book. The till filled until she thought maybe, just maybe, she'd break even. Until tomorrow at least. Once again, the small workstation dripped with cream, spilled coffee, and lavender syrup. A few straw wrappers littered the floor. Not for the first time, Mallory regretted her only moneymaker, the coffee. Uncle Bud would tell me to stay well-grounded. A rattle, uneven and unfamiliar, slowly grew from the back of her consciousness. Mallory stuck her head out the door of the tiny bookstore and saw a woman dragging an enormous rolling suitcase up the street. Rolled up Bermuda shorts, t-shirt, hair pulled back in a ponytail. The woman pulling the suitcase could have been anywhere from 19 to 40. Don't know that face. A row of businesses, she hoped anyway, tempted Lila Santana away from the ferry landing and toward the town center of Meriwether Island. Reginald Square, he called it. The ferry guy said I'd find directions from someone at Reginald Square. Nothing looked promising. Still, all the other ferry riders, were they called farriers? No, that's a guy who shoes a horse, isn't it? They'd flocked to a taco truck that sent tantalizing caffeinated scents down Captain's Walk. Smart advertising. Her battered, hard-shell suitcase bounced and rattled over the gray road surface as Lila dragged it along. Instead of towering palms, a few tall, spread-out trees shaded her as she pulled away from the landing. A glance around her showed a few pines in the distance as well. Pine trees? On an island? Where are all the palms? Even Phoenix has more palms than this. Lila mocked herself. Dodo, you're not in Phoenix anymore. The stretched out line had dwindled to almost no one by the time she came within reading distance of the sandwich board alerting her to the daily specials. Except they weren't specials. It read, The Book Barrow. Books and coffee for the discriminating palate. Books. Odd choice for a taco truck, but who was she to judge? At least there were books and coffee on Merryweather. If the house she'd come to manage didn't have a good library, she wouldn't starve for reading material. A woman stuck her head out the door as she neared. Thirsty? As much as her almost empty wallet protested, Lila nodded. Something cool and refreshing. Coffee? Italian soda? Blackberry or lavender lemonade? Maybe it wasn't the most mature thing to do. It for sure wasn't the smartest, but Lila dropped the handle to her suitcase and let it flop over beside the sandwich board. Blackberry lemonade sounds amazing. While she waited, she scanned the area. A bit ahead, behind, Lila stared close. Maple trees in the south? Behind whatever kind of trees they are, a few buildings hinted that maybe Reginald Square was dead ahead. Hey, do you know what kind of trees those are? The head appeared again. After following Lila's point, she turned back. Gum trees. Gum? She must have misunderstood. I meant the ones with the spread out leaves, like maple leaves. Yeah, those are gum. That's when the woman grinned. You from California? Arizona. Phoenix. How'd you know? Laughter filled the vacated space as the woman disappeared again. Your accent. Lila would have nodded, but the Westerner wouldn't let her. Don't have accents out west. You do. That's why news anchors are trained to talk like you. Yeah, I know. Has nothing to do with Hollywood being in California or anything. Last I heard, every major city in the U.S. has news anchors, and most of them sound like us. No accent. Lila held out her hand for the proffered lemonade. How much? Was it her imagination, or did the woman wince before saying, On the shop. Welcome to Merryweather. How do you know I'm not a tourist dying to drop my money everywhere I go? Besides the fact that Merryweather doesn't cater to tourists? This time the woman offered her hand. Mallory Barrows. What could she do? Lila shook the hand and said, Lila Santana, new property manager of Danforth Hall. She swallowed a cooling sip of lemonade, inhaled another pound of muggy air, and added, Nice to meet you. Danforth, nice. The woman pulled out a damp rag and began wiping off the nearest table. Pamela Danforth was a lovely woman. She'll be missed around here. I wondered if Richard would come himself or send someone, but when he didn't come to the funeral, I figured he couldn't leave whatever that place is he lives. Azadi. Where's that again? Mallory's honeyed tones made the question sound like a serving of peach cobbler topped with ice cream. The thought made Lila's stomach rumble. I don't know. I didn't know either until he hired me. It's just this strip of land between Yemen and Oman. Apparently, it's where lots of money is made. Mr. Danforth is too busy with his business stuff to deal with the house, so he sent me. Well, it's a huge place full of awesome history. I don't know it. Our family are breakers people. But I know folks who do if you want to know want to know about anything. What I'd love to know is how to find it and how long the walk is. Mallory pulled an apron over her head and gestured for Lila to sit. You're not allergic to peanuts, are you? Peanuts? No? Why? Good thing. There's a farm that butts up against your property, well, the Danforths. If you're allergic, you should turn back around. Otherwise, if you'll give me an hour, I'll drive you over myself. It's a good 7 or 8 miles up the eastern side of the island. So much for getting a long hot shower and collapsing in bed. Still, she couldn't afford to offend someone willing to give her a free ride. Well, thanks. What kind of books do you like to read? Romance by... No romance. After eyeing her for a moment, Mallory continued as if not interrupted. Biography? Memoir? Historical? Fantasy? Thriller? Got anything about the islands? I don't know anything about this part of the country. Breezes that should have been cooling and just didn't quite make it ruffled curls that had escaped from Mallory's braid and gave her rather a wild look. Still she stood there, examining Lila as if searching for something specific. Be right back. Left alone, Lila closed her eyes and tried taking long, slow, deep breaths. I can do this. I'm safe here. With the breeze rustling leaves in the trees, the sound of the surf close by, a gull's cry, a few twittering birds here and there, island life, despite the muggy air, might just be perfect. A bang and a grunt ripped her from the tranquil moment. Several seconds later, another bang and a thud followed. So much for tranquility. The temptation to call out and insist that Mallory skip the idea of a book died on her lips when the woman appeared with 2 books in hand. She slid the first one onto the wrought iron ice cream table. This one's a history of how the islands helped win the war for independence. What looked like a legal thriller followed it. This one's fiction, but it takes place here on the islands, and it's really well researched. You'll know Merryweather after reading it. Lila picked up the thriller, read the first sentence of the synopsis, and dropped it back onto the table. The only thing worse than being hunted is being hunted in a hurricane? I don't think so. Without even reading the back of the other one, she pulled out her wallet. I'll take the history of the islands. And there we go, guys. That's the first chapter of Dual Power of Convenience. I'm so excited for you to get to know Lila and Richard and get to know Mallory better and all the peoples. Thank you for coming. Thank you for doing this. And be sure to listen to Scrumptious Independence and Mishaps on the Mainland and Her Merryweather Hero and Secret Beast Boyfriend as well. Oh, Restoring Fairhaven. Almost forgot that one. Can't forget that one. Isn't that a cool title? Restoring Fairhaven. Can't wait to read that one. So anywho, it's so good to spend time with you guys. Stay tuned. I think we're going to do some other chapters. I think I might even read Bringing in the May from my website. So we're going to have some fun just to give us something different right now. Meanwhile, see you later. Have a great week.